All right. Now I want to switch gears to talking about career. And I want to have the perspective of the undergrad students that are listening to the podcast and deciding what they want to do for life. Tell me what a junior analyst in syndication would have to know to thrive in this career.
Okay, so on careers in general.
All right.
And for full disclosure, I approach it always with a bit as an organizational cynic. I don't think there is the script for the career.
I agree.
So now, maybe 50 years ago, people thought about a career. So if I start there, it's a very predictable path.
Yeah.
I think this is rapidly changing. It's already changed in my lifetime. And I only, as a good friend of mine always says, he tells his kids, chances are you have three very distinct careers.
Mm-hmm.
And they might even be in very different industries. You might start out in banking, switch to hotels, and, become an influencer. I'm making this up, but so, and the other big myth is, which I recently came across, it really spoke to me, and I think it's reflected. People always talk about follow your passion. That's a luxury that nobody has. Ask yourself, what are you good at? And I think that is really, if you are not a person, to your question, what does it take to be good in syndication? If you're a very analytical person, but don't like to talk to people, syndication is not the thing for you. And so I'm not answering, your question directly, but more kind of from various aspects. So what I would, and what I also tell my kids, hey, don't think about, what, where your passion is or what you think makes you the most money. Think about what are you really good at? That people, when you talk to people, say, wow, Jose, this kid is smart. The way he talked about X, this is something that inspired me, Think about, because if you're good at it, you will thrive. The money will follow,
Exactly.
And you'll find people who want to work with you. Yeah. So I really think the most important question you can ask yourself is, what am I good at? And then what do I like? Now, to your question in syndication, if you don't like to work with people, you're probably not the right person, and that's not, and there's also the other aspect of it. There's no right and wrong,
Mm-hmm.
There is no script. Think about, I always say, think with your heart. And that gets you to a place where you have fun, where you're good at, and then you connect with people.
Fantastic. And what, the people that had worked with you, how they developed this career? If someone that is listening to the podcast now and say, I'm inspired. I like what this guy is talking about. I like what he's done. Then he goes, does some research. I expect you to do some research. And you say, well, maybe syndicate is for me. Where did the professionals that have worked with you came from? Where did they start their careers?
In various places, I myself, I'm an accidental banker, I never planned this career. It just happened to be so that, again, I got an internship in Buenos Aires and then it kind of, just happened, and people who have, worked with me or that I see in other places. It's such a niche position. I don't think you can really plan this. Yeah.
All right.
As many positions are kind of more accidental. It comes back to, I think it's the whole career planning is, as I say, luck is being prepared for the opportunity. Don't be like in this vision and then you might miss out something else, So talk to people. I think one thing I've learned, is actually never ask people for a job, always ask people for advice.
Uh-huh.
And convince them, because if you ask people for advice and they feel that they are impressed by you, they might say, send me your CV and see whether I see something. If you ask people for a job, you put them in a very difficult position because they might not have something.
Yeah.
So how do you get into it? I think by talking to people, you always, the trick is to find a point of entry into an organization. And they are very, depending on larger larger corporates, they're very structured processes, and you see a smaller firm, there might be more kind of, hey, I know this guy, let me make a call, So again, for me, I think it's a big danger is to think there is a script and a path to follow. The most important thing is, I think, take a blank blank sheet of paper and think about, I'm here, how do I want this image to look like? And think about what is the right path for you. Play with what works for you, not what, somebody told you it works.
Fantastic. I love that advice. And on the other side of the table, you're dealing with or the banks, you're dealing with hedge funds. Who is on the other side of the table of syndication?
It's
group?
All of the above and more.
All right.
I always said, when I started in this 25 years ago, people that, it was a very predictable market. There were essentially the banks. We used to do these liquidity analysis. Okay, there is a 3 times levered mining company in Peru. They said, who does mining globally? And 3 times, moderate leverage. Okay, there were very predictably 20 banks you could call, and, high likelihood that 75% came in. That has shifted. There are very few global banks, not everything, so then all of a sudden you have hedge funds, you have, insurance companies, you have family offices. So it has really become more, there's an analytical aspect to it, and I don't want to, diminish it, mm-hmm. but there's also more of an art than a science. And again, it comes to being in touch with the market. And what do I mean by this? This is not just, scrolling your phone. It's more like, okay, who did I talk to? Be in the market, talk to people, and it's really depending on the situation. It could be a combination from a newly formed private credit fund to a well-established emerging dedicated hedge fund to an insurance company. It's really very transaction specific, region specific. One of the things we always talk about, the Latin American market, which I think is a big danger to talk about the Latin American market, because Latin America includes, I don't know, 20 plus countries, which are very different. It includes everything from Brazil
to Panama,
Suriname,
to
Barbados is part of it, the Caribbean, and they are intrinsically different markets with very different dynamics, with very different investors, so you really have to kind of tackle and really think about context specific rather than, I do Latin America. It's much more granular than that.
Yeah, that's fantastic. I'm loving this conversation. Maybe you never heard of syndicated loans. That's important in Brazil. It's a fraction of the market, but there's some great opportunities there. Maybe that opportunity is for you, maybe not. How do you find out how many different careers are in the market? Well, maybe you should read my book, Head On the Financial Market. 6 Steps to Becoming a Banker. Well, it's in Portuguese here. Has 2 parts. The first part helps you to interview, get you ready to interview and successfully get into the financial markets. And the second part, it explains the financial markets. It explains what are the different careers, what is the evolution in the career, what's the difference between an analyst, an associate, a VP, a director, and also has the day in life of an investment banker, a day in life of a research analyst. So it's a very rich content. This is probably the best place for you to start your research and decide what career fits you best. Read this book. It's available hardcover. It's available online at Kindle, and it's also available at bankersacademy.com.br.